Good evening, and welcome to Odds and Ends. Tonight we're interviewing producer, cinematographer, and environmental filmmaker Anne Jolie Harvard. Her documentary, Guardian of the Gulf, The Dry Tortugas, is Miss Harvard's directorial debut, and her passion for the subject matter shines through her ecological footage. Anne Jolie combines her favorite activities of travel, storytelling, and cinematography to raise awareness about what truly means most to her, the ocean. So stay tuned.
If I could, I would take up the sea, join hands with the sky, I'd melt with the shore. They're part of all I adore, and all the love we will share, one moment more.
Hello, welcome to Odds and Ends, and it's wonderful to see you. I haven't seen you actually in about 15 years.
Has it been that long? Because really, honestly, I feel like, with friendships like these, it's timeless.
Oh, it's like yesterday. You have so many great credentials. I understand you're a great swimmer, and the ocean is your passion. And as we know, the oceans cover over 70% of the Earth's landscape. What made you attracted to the ocean?
Wow, I think that it originally started in my mother's womb, probably, because that's where we start swimming, right? That's where we're most connected to our original form, is in the womb. So I really believe that we all come out as swimmers, and then we forget to swim. It's just like everything else, art, whatever. It takes practice. So if you don't use it, you lose it. It's all connected. And so I think that really is what drove my passion to the ocean, is my mother, and possibly the disconnect that I felt with her, but yet naturally through her to nature. I always enjoyed the ocean, even though it taught me some hard lessons. That's life, So I think that the ocean really encompasses everything about life that I ever wanted to learn, and then led me to my understanding of God, And so there is a natural way of our nature and our bodies and our surroundings and our environment that should lead us to a higher understanding of things. And the ocean always did that for me. I could look at the ocean and be like, wow, I am this small of a drop and yet connected to everything, because the ocean is the one thing that connects us all.
Is global warming having an effect on the ocean and its inhabitants?
Oh, global warming. Of course. Yes. I mean, just from me being a child into swimming and being afraid of the deep end because I thought there were sharks, and then seeing the media's representation of the deep end and the pool and the ocean made me afraid. And it really made me curious too, because I'm like, well, once I swam in the deep end of the pool, I could swim in the deep end of the ocean. Do I really need to be afraid? It's similar to space. It's similar to spirituality. Do I really need to be afraid? Do I really need to be controlled by fear? Well, once you learn to swim, you're no longer afraid to drown. So a lot of people forget how to swim, stop trusting themselves, seize up, and then drown because they're afraid of drowning. So they're drowning themselves in fear. I think that the ocean teaches us these natural abilities that we have inherently that we don't need to relearn. Like you throw a kid in the water, they're usually swimming. It's not like later on when they're adult, their mind says, oh, panic and fear, and then stop breathing and then sink to the bottom. So
my question to you would be, does the underwater life, is it controlled by circadian rhythms?
Oh, yeah, something about climate change.
Is there like a day and a night under the sea?
Under the sea. Oh, yes. I definitely believe that we're reset and now that I've learned how to free dive, there's something in your brain that resets when you're underwater and then you come up for air. There's something that is similar to rebirth. So when I was baptized and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to let go of all these things in the water. And the water would absorb, like when you're swimming, all your stress and all your things and all your everything that's going on is not going on in the water. You have to be in the water and thinking about swimming. So I think that, yes, the circadian rhythms, I think that the earth and the balance of everything is all intertwined. I mean, I truly believe this because otherwise we wouldn't be here. And I just was having this conversation with somebody just 5 minutes ago, and that's a little bit why I was like, it's good to have this conversation so I can carry it on into this conversation, because a lot of people are so disconnected from nature and the water.
Yes.
That they no longer understand. But then the fear is what gets in the way of us remembering how to swim, remembering to relax. You're totally floating when you're relaxed.
But you scuba dive, right? You scuba dive.
I scuba dive and I free dive, yes. And but I was also a swimmer and I raced before. And I found out my biological father he swam a lot. And there's a certain reflex in people's ears where when people dive down, they got to pop their ears. The way that my head is shaped, and I think it has to do with genealogy and also how you swim, or maybe if you swim, but it's the shape of your head, basically. I don't have to hold my nose to pop it when I go underwater. So it made it a lot more easy for me to dive 40 meters on one breath than most people, because most people, they're blocking, they think they can't, so they hold their nose, they're not used to the discomfort and pain, and then they try to push it. But like if you just relax, you can actually lie down in the water and you don't have, it's not pushing with resistance. You're just literally at first it's a little swimming down and then you start to free fall.
Right.
And that's what swimming is. It's not like, I gotta go. It's like, I'm just gliding, I'm swimming, I'm going in this direction,
Now, what is the deepest that you've dived underwater? The deepest you've gone?
129 feet. And that was without tanks. And then 120 feet with tanks. So actually it's easier to go without tanks than with tanks, because if you're diving down on artificial tanks, you're not as streamlined, and it takes a lot more force and weight.
But you need enough air, though. You need enough air to get back to the top.
It's all mental. I've seen a very elderly gentleman, 74 years old, hold his breath for over 8 minutes. Like he didn't like work out and lift weights and do all these things. It's mind training. So it's definitely mind over matter. And the ocean brings out something really special in people. And I think that when people are at the ocean, they become their like version of themselves that's connected to nature, because it's just so astounding. It's like being confronted with stars. It's so weird to me that people can sit at the ocean and watch TV. Like when I started making TV, I got rid of my TV because I was like, when I'm watching a screen, I am working on something. I do love stories and I love seeing what people create. I just find that once I cut out that input from other people, I was more connected to nature's input. And so the ocean, people are like, oh, this is boring. And it's like, no, you're just so used to so much stimulus all the time. Like you don't see that there's stimulus all the time coming from different places. You're just so focused on this little box. And so The ocean isn't like that. It's so overwhelming that people kind of have to narrow their view. And then all they see is water and some beach.
There are many subtleties under the water.
Yes, it's underwater, on the water, around the water, everything.
And you have no fears? No more fear of sharks, of octopus?
I thought the coolest way to die, honestly, would be like a shark attack. I really was like, people are like, how do you want to die? And I was like, man, I just want to be ripped to pieces by sharks, because like that would be such a cool way to die. Like I'd be going back into the environment. But usually sharks don't eat people like that. They just take a bite and then they spit them out, because we're not really like, we're not tasty to them. They don't want to eat.
Have you actually seen sharks in the water?
Oh, yes. People scare me a lot more than sharks. Sharks, I can understand like what they're going after, and when I went to New York, the first thing I studied in the New York Library was sharks. And I pitched 16 different ideas to Shark Week, and they liked 3 of them, and they wanted me to film and produce one and then sell it to them. And I was like, no, I was pitching it to you to fund me so that I could go do this research. And they were like, it doesn't work like that. And I was like, oh, okay, well, good luck anyway. Well, I'll just do it my way. And my way was better and is better because I don't really subscribe to the whole television mentality anyway. And there was a really unfortunate situation where I went to the Tri-Tortugas, and this is where I'm shooting my documentary. There are some people from really incredible couple, and they've been studying sharks all their lives. And I wanted to interview so bad, and he said, nope. He said, Shark Week has twisted our words into something that turned out to be violent about the sharks. And they did. They wanted to make it more dramatic the way that they said their words. And I said, no, I'm not here to twist your words for drama. I'm here to document what you're saying. And they had such a horrible taste in their mouth about the media and television in general. And I said, that's why I'm making a film.
But sharks are very important to our ecosystem, right? We need sharks.
Oh, yes, as our wolves and predators and everything that some people think is wicked, God has a balance, and I don't think that we're, intelligent or our forethought is enough to understand the whole process of nature, Yeah.
Now, what about whales? Have you actually seen actual whales and been in the water with whales?
Yes, I have. The first time ever is in Hawaii. And I remember hearing them, and I thought, wow, I thought it was like a beeping sound, because I was like, what is that? No, like that is a whale sound. And then I recognized it. And the interesting part was that I recognized it as a whale because I had heard recordings on maybe Jacques Cousteau and some of those earlier TV shows that were really inspirational to me, and why I started my interest in.
Now, what are they singing about? When whales sing, what are they singing about? Are they communicating? Are they expressing themselves? Is it a mating call?
Well, here's the thing. A lot of understanding that I rely on is through my dreams and dream states, because I have had dreams where I'm like, I'm going to research this. Oh, that's real. Oh my gosh. So when I first saw whales up close was in a dream, and they were all like bobbers, like fishing bobbers. And they were, instead of swimming this way, they were just stationary up and down. And then my husband at the time, he said, that's how they sleep. So I told him about this dream where I was swimming through a pod of sleeping whales, and they were upright and floating. But I didn't know that they did that. I just knew in my dream they were doing that, and I could see the detail of the barnacles on their face, and it was very realistic. Like this is the thing about dreams and things that I've seen that in incredible detail. There's no way my mind could make up, and I feel like that's God showing me through animals and nature what my mind couldn't really see. Even if I was looking at the whale in real life, I'd be like, oh, I'm swimming and all this other stuff. Apparently they do, and they sleep upright, like not swimming sideways, but upright. Dolphins actually do sleep kind of with one eye, and then they kind of cruise around. And the place I lived in Hawaii was where the dolphins would sleep. And it was really neat to see. And yet at the same time, it was very stressful to think about as a human that cares so much about dolphins. That's like, oh, they're sleeping and I want to see them, but I don't want people to know that they're sleeping there, so people won't go and look at them and touch them. And I understand human nature is to touch things, and they want to touch things. And sometimes animal wants you to touch them, but they will come to you. You don't need to go to them. I see a lot of people swimming with sharks and whales and things and touching them, and I can understand if they need to divert them or send them on their way. That's one thing. But riding them and petting them is not appropriate because of their skin type, and because it's like, oh, Clyde, can I touch your hair? Like a lot of people just don't even ask. I mean, I know this. And then at the Tortugas, I'm in a wildlife protected area. And if I stay there for more than 3 days, I would smell and look like the wildlife. So I very much could understand, like,
Right.
what it's like to be out there in your element, and then people coming in off the boat and being like, hey, can I touch you? Like, what are you doing? Like, how is it going? And you're like, man, I don't know. Like,
I would say also there were two very famous movies in America that kind of idolized and showed a fear of whales. Moby Dick was an 1851 novel that was written in London. It became a movie, Moby Dick, with Captain Ahab, who had this relentless hatred to catch this great white whale and take him down because the whale had made him lose one leg. And in the end, he actually gets killed because he harpoons the whale, and he gets caught in the harpoon line, and the whale takes him way below the sea. Then, of course, we had Free Willy, another movie. So there's been many movies fascinated, with whales. And are people still killing whales to make oil from their blubber, or that's over?
I believe so. One of the first, actually, I really, when I was younger, I didn't want to get into politics, but my grandmother was best friends with Lady Bird Johnson. And I do believe that had a huge impact on my life, way larger than I realized later, as far as our public lands go and some of the politics that goes towards our national parks and some of the preservation. Like, I've just been always drawn towards the protection of our lands. And I'm so enthusiastic about having a Native American woman as our Department of Interior. And there's rarely anything about politics that I'm excited about, but having someone that is Indigenous to be taking care of the land, understanding the land, and there to back the whales and the stories and these things, especially storytelling. The whales specifically, before I was saved, I did have a very interesting path of, I would say, New Age and like pseudoscience / like shamanism interjected into my life. I don't claim to be a shaman. I have met people that have claimed to be shamans. I don't think that a real shaman would ever say that they are a shaman. I do know that the whale song is, I know this from my heart, is that the whale song is history. And like when you hear it, there's something that just resonates within you. Like if you feel it, like you feel it. It's like that song that hits you, So for me, it was the whale song, and it's this history, and the indigenous people pass on their history through their oral traditions. And I believe that the whales do as well. Like when you look in their eye, it's the same as like a turtle or an elephant. It's just, they have that look of knowing, understanding, and they've been here for a long time, and they're here to help encourage us. And I think that's why people get so excited about whales and the sea life, is because
what is their purpose though on Earth? What is their purpose?
Their purpose, I believe, is to express and communicate to us that animals are conscious and that these beings, if not a better understanding than we do, so we like to think that we're intelligent and they're intelligent also. And I think that that's like where we all have to meet, is that we are all intelligent beings. And the only way we're ever going to get together and work together is through that peace and understanding that you see in a whale's eye or an elephant's eye or a turtle's eye. When you look in their eyes, just this deep knowing and understanding of peace. Because in the ocean, it's peace and tranquility, but they are still also, I've seen a whale breach out of the water. When you see something that's several tons jump up through the water like it's nothing, it is a defiance of physics and gravity,
Yes.
That there's something really special and unique. I think that people and humans still see magic in whales as like something that's phenomenal, but it's also very spiritual. And I think that people either fear what they don't understand, and thus the wanting to kill it because they don't understand it, or wanting to be in control of it,
Yes.
But like, how are you going to control something like that? You can't. And I see it like Jonah, like you cannot understand it until you're in it, and then once you're in it, you can't even see your way out of it because you're in it. I think that that's our history, and the whale is.
Well, I think ecology is the key. Ecology is the key. And in 1971, Marvin Gaye had an album called What's Going On. And there was a song that he wrote called Mercy, Mercy Me, which he talked about oil spills. And one line in the song was, oil upon our seas and fish full of mercury.
Oil wasted on the oceans and upon our seas, fish full of mercury.
He was very aware of ecology, and I think maybe that's the key of mankind to protect our land, to end corporate dumping of chemicals in the sea, oil spills, which have been killing a lot of aquatic life. What do you say about that? Is that still something that's prevalent? And also, there's also
really,
plastic.
Honestly, Clyde,
plastic bottles going into the sea.
I used to worry about all this stuff. I used to be like a major activist, and I used to say, well, we got to stop this and we got to do this and that. And the reality is that, Clyde, the ocean has been here a lot longer than us. So have these whales. So why are we trying to figure out something that they already have figured out? You know, like we know what to do. We know what we have to do. I don't think it's about like us telling other people what to do. It's all of us individually. Like, what do we have to do? And rather than, pointing our finger. Mm-hmm. And that's what they're doing. They're like, yes. Oh, I love you. Yeah. They come up to the surface and they're like, hey, we love you.
So tell me about your documentary.
The Dry Tortugas National Park is amazing. It is the first place I've ever seen a whale shark. I was cruising on a kayak over to Loggerhead Key. It's about a 3-mile kayak.
Where were you when this happened? Where?
It's Florida Keys. Okay. So the Dry Tortugas National Park is located 70 miles west of Key West. And okay. It is, you can only get there by a ferry or a seaplane or a private charter. So, or a kayak. The kayak tours that started out there were about 30 years ago. And I actually got one of the original guides in the film. And that's why I started this film, was because I went there just to visit on a vacation. And I realized that it has a huge narrative about our country and what's going on with the ocean, the country, history, and history repeating itself. And how are we as a community going to process it and deal with it the best way that we can while letting nature take its course? I think that human nature wants to think that it's in control, when in reality, like the indigenous people know that we are not in control. They've been here a lot longer and they have a lot longer of a history, oral history, yes, as do the whales. So their learning is through listening. Our learning is through talking and repeating. So people with a musical ear have a bit of a different kind of understanding and intelligence than people that see things or people that feel things. And so we have all these inputs coming in. The whales.
And your film basically highlights this?
For a long time. No, it's just my film organically captures what this one little location represents as far as our country, the state of everything going on today. It's so weird because this one 16-acre little island shows history just repeating itself. And that's why it's so special and nobody really knows about it, is because it seems insignificant. And yet it's like the person on a movie set that gets the coffee. They seem insignificant, and yet they can control the whole set, because if there's no coffee, then nobody on set can function. I fell so much in love with this location that I decided to make it my life's work and share its story. And it wasn't that I decided that. It's like more like, as an artist, when you have something in you, you got to get it out. And I had no idea that it would take me now coming up on 15 years to tell this story, or even get to the point where I feel confident in my storytelling abilities and skills to give it its full, just the performance that it deserves. Because back then,
what is it called? What is it called? Your film? What is it called?
The Guardian of the Gulf. It's like the Guardian is the fortress, Fort Jefferson, and how it's played its own little role in that little ecosystem. and also in American history, how the Keys played a huge part in the development of our nation. So also the fact that our Space Force is called the Guardians, and then Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, I think that there's something really sacred about our waterways and our canals. And I happen to be living in Pagosa Springs, where we have the deepest hot springs in the whole country coming up from these beautiful, and people are like, oh, what's so special about here? Is it, and it's the water, and it's the water that connects us. It's the life force, it's the air, it's everything. And like, being an ocean girl, I do miss the ocean, but I also appreciate not being distracted by the ocean, because I would love to just go and play all day. I think on our part, like, we really have a lot more power in our buying power than recycling. Like, recycling makes us feel good, but the reality is that the energy and time consumption of recycling is not really the way to go. I think that we have a lot more better technologies and better ideas to unite and come together and fix things. And it's not really us. I think that the ocean does have its own natural way. The earth does have its own natural way of recalibrating. So what the film is about the history of the dry tortugas, based upon how it was discovered by Ponce de Leon and Christopher Columbus. Now, Ponce came over here looking for the Fountain of Youth, and he thought the Fountain of Youth was on the dry tortugas. So they were digging holes and looking all over for the Fountain of Youth. And that's a lot of part of history that people don't realize. Like, oh, why are they over there? They're looking for treasures. No, they're looking for the Fountain of Youth. And like, what is the Fountain of Youth? Well, these Native Americans did not appreciate these guys coming over and looking for a fountain where there obviously was no fresh water. So the Native Americans shot Ponce de Leon, and then the pirates took over that area because they were merchant sailors, and there was no other way except for ships to get over. And so that's when you see the Tortugas. The only mention in pop culture or history is the Pirates of the Caribbean. They mentioned the Tortugas as a hunting grounds for pirates, because the merchant ships would come into Florida or through the Florida Straits up and through into the Mississippi.
There was also a famous jazz song,
1900s.
a famous jazz song written by jazz trumpeter Clifford Brown called Joy Spring. And it was really kind of about the same thing you're talking about. It's a jazz standard, Joy Spring.
The joy spring about the pleasure is deep inside you, whether you're digging it or not. Once you're aware of this spring, you'll know that it's the greatest treasure you got.
Tell me something also. I know you've done a lot of different type of directing and other films. What other kinds of films have you directed?
I really haven't directed. I've directed, the only thing I've actually, and this is the whole thing about being a director, is like, you can't really say you're a director until you've actually directed something. And in all reality, this film, I like to say I'm a creator because the film has directed me. I've only directed short films prior to now. So the only other films I've directed is a other documentary about the Coral Castle in Florida, and then my own little shorts. So as far as a feature film, when I first started making movies, being a female director was unheard of. So I never went to school wanting to be a director. I never thought I would be a director. It's just that I couldn't find a director that really connected or resonated with the story as well as I did. So I just kept hiring people, and I was like, no, we're not making it for TV. We're making it the way that the nature is telling me to make it. And they were like, that's weird. And I was like, yeah, but so am I. So it works out. It's not for TV. Had I released it back then, it would have just been seen and blah, blah, blah. But it wouldn't have directed me or my life in the way that it works. So the way that I see this film and why it's a film and not for TV is that at the time, TV was still very much like pace and blah, 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 crap and a bunch of information, but not really any substance. And it still is that way. And that's why I lean towards filmmaking and storytelling and creative, storytelling rather than television. Because,
would you say your documentary is too esoteric, or can it relate to the average person who isn't really
very much a PBS style documentary? my relationship with a forward, my relationship with a story is that it just comes to me and I am the vessel for which it is coming through. So I just.
And are you seen in the movie? Are you seen? Do we see you in the documentary?
Just one time setting up a tent.
Okay.
Because I had no B-roll of like people setting up a tent, and it was just way easier for me to set up my own tent and shoot myself camping out.
Here, a lot of people don't realize that Dry Tortugas is 99% of it is underwater. And the national park is much more than just Fort Jefferson. It's a world-class, spectacular natural setting. The coral reefs out here are the best preserved in the entire Florida Keys. We have birds, the 80,000 sooty terns that migrate and nest here over on Bush Key. It's a world-class ecological setting. And getting to experience that just in my daily life out here is a real privilege.
Are you in the water? Do you still go in the water every day, every week?
I actually have to bring up all the water that I use to my location. So every single drop of water that comes through my faucet has got to be hauled up a massive mountain at an incline at about 40% through a truck, and then drained into a pump, and then pumped into my cistern.
Where are you living now? Where are you actually residing?
In Pagosa Springs in Colorado. And that's how the way that we lived in Hawaii was we brought all of our water, or we had a catchment. I didn't even know back then that catchment was illegal, that you actually have to, that you're not allowed to catch rainwater. And so I'm like, I'm living off a catchment. And they're like, you're not allowed to. And I'm like, what? No, you're not. And I said, okay, well, I'm not living off of it. I'm just gardening my plants with it. But it was ridiculous to think about, like, okay, well, that's where half of the farmers get, their own shower water. I mean, it's literally in Hawaii, it's raining. So people cannot imagine trying to bring fresh water to the mainland or wherever, and then the infrastructure to get it from one place to another. Mm-hmm. So what they were doing in Hawaii was they were bringing out truckloads of water to the farmers, and then we just fill up at a free little hose spigot and then bring it. And then here we have it's a similar situation where we literally take a truck to a water location. It's a penny a gallon, and we pay at like a water dispensary thing. But it makes you way more conscious of how much water you're using. We're not watering our lands with it like our lawn. We're literally brushing our teeth, taking a shower, doing our dishes, sometimes not. It's a great excuse to not do dishes.
So you don't take a lot of baths? You don't waste a lot of water?
No, there's a hot spring here. So
a natural hot spring.
And the healing waters of Pagosa is just, there's something really incredible about having a fresh deep water spring coming up through all those mineral wells and then soaking into your skin. It's great. And then the mountain springs coming down too. And the San Juans is like close to the four corners of Colorado. So it's close to Texas and all the other states, right? American, so my geography is challenged.
So what happens now? Now that you've kind of finishing your documentary, what do you think is going to be your next project, your next endeavor, your next focus?
I mean, the cool thing about the documentary is that I am able to go with the flow more. And so having a 15-year project, which most people would never undertake. And if you said to me, it's going to take 15 years to do this, I don't know if I would have done it. But the fact that it's evolving as I evolve and the industry evolves is perfect. The whole thing about what I'm doing next is it's all evolving into that. So everything I've learned from this project is going into the next and the next. And really it's teaching children about the responsibility of retaining their independence through their own stories, and that it's okay to tell your own story and have your own story, and also history in general, like the whale song, connecting through natural history, the history that surrounds us, the people that stood up for us and before us. I just think that right now everybody's so divided, into this divisive. The whole idea of this film and things is bringing things together, people together, art forms together to tell a story. And isn't that what history is telling a story to unite us and better understand each other? So that's really what my goal is to use this story and how I told the story to help others tell their story and to future generations, and how important it is to encourage our storytellers and our people, because we can't rely, like, we're getting to that point where we've seen enough special effects. Like, we need story, we need heart-to-heart connection and stories that are supernatural. The structure of it right now is chronological. The idea is just to teach history and the untold history about how we've all gotten to be here, and how history goes back a long ways, and how we made a lot of mistakes in the past. But overall, America is a very new country. We forget that we're figuring out things, and that, when you're in the middle of figuring out things, you don't want people to be like, hey, you're doing it wrong, you're doing it wrong, you're doing it wrong. So I think we all have got to, especially this moment in time, just accept where we are, and then move forward in a way that is most graceful and loving. And I think that whale, just going back to that whale song, and the way that the whale looks at you and the way that a turtle looks at you, like even an elephant. And I was so blessed to be able to see a lot of people just don't like the captivity of elephants. And I don't either. It breaks my heart. But when I was in New York, and my first big job was at Madison Square Garden, and I saw those elephants, and I was on the floor with those elephants, and I could feel them shaking the floor. It was just this connection that I felt with those elephants that I could not feel with any of the people around me. Right. And there is that connection that we have with nature that's inherent, and we are being cut off of at the moment. So we need to get back to nature. We need to get back to understanding, or at least the curiosity of the understanding of what is it that we see or feel when we look in that whale's eye? Like, what is it? But that's what drives me, is like, I want to share that curiosity with these kids I'm meeting. Is like, I hope that they don't have to see a whale in captivity. I would love for them to see a whale in nature, but I think that that's going to get harder and more difficult. But if we can tell our stories and our experiences and keep the lineage of storytelling going, we don't all have to see a whale. There's no reason that we should all have to go and touch a whale and be like, oh, it's important and protected. Good question. So that's my mission, I guess, is just to finish what I set out to start, and then also have fun doing it and explore.
Now, before we leave, it's been a great interview. I want you to make mention of the people that you said sponsored you and gave you the space to do this. Who are they?
Okay, so I definitely want to thank Pagosa Innovation Center, which is where I'm at. This is a really awesome, very new shared space, I would say. There's a term for it. It's a co-op. It's a co-op. And they are really doing this great thing where people come from the city. A lot of people are done with the city. They just are like, I can't go out, I can't concentrate. So it's easier to be out here. Like, I'm writing a book and concentrating on my film. So this Pagosa Innovation Center offers a fiber optic connection. I literally, out of my cabin, I have still a 4G network. I am not into 5G. I'd much rather have no connection out there, where I can just write and be connected with the trees and nature. So I come into town to be connected. So Pagosa Innovation Center has just been so awesome. I found this place through I won a day here after I got my ACL surgery. And so that day I had forgotten my charger, and they were like, oh, you can come back anytime. So this is a perfect opportunity to use that time. And I really thank you so much to the Pagosa Innovation Center. My church is awesome. They have been out there in Aspen Springs and Pagosa and have Wi-Fi and everything else, but they're more of a community center / church non-denominational, same as Unity. Unity and just God in general has directed me to go through art. Art led me to God. God led me to art. You know, we're created in His image, so we are to create and make fun things and come up with great ideas and work together. And this is a great space for that. Full Sail, my college in Orlando, is awesome. They have given me all the skills and confidence in being like hands-on with the technology. Yes. And even I have alumni that's here helping with the space that I met that had graduated, I think, just 2 years earlier than myself. And then New York, obviously, Unity, and Eddie Luisi is my just like one of these mentors. Eddie Luisi and Anthony Lenzo in New York, who I worked with at Good Morning America and on a couple, Anthony with Underwater Shoots, trained me. New York is very different than any place else in the country. You cannot get any more experience than you can in New York. And I really love that in my 20s. I am just grateful in general for Hawaii and learning the indigenous. I went to go learn just how to pronounce the street signs. But by learning the linguistics of indigenous people speaking, I learned the power of chanting and also just understanding nature through language. Yeah. And so the Hawaiian people just were incredible in getting me connected to understanding what I'm seeing in that whale's eye. Can I put it into words? Probably not. A chant? Maybe. But their song is really what stands out. And then the Dry Tortugas National Park and the Park Service and national parks in general is incredible. I just think that our park service is so important. And like a lot of people are anti-government, anti-things, but we wouldn't have our national parks, and we really need our national parks. We need to preserve those things for future generations. So that's super important. And then, just women in film and television in New York was really incredible in supporting me as a woman before the Me Too movement, which a lot of people don't understand what it was like. I mean, I was one of the first camera operators as a female on the set of Good Morning America with Diane Sawyer, and everybody thought it was a joke. They really thought like, oh, that's funny. These guys are playing a trick on us. And I was like, nope, I'm going to wheel out the jib and I'm going to be on camera. And I did it. And they were like, oh, this is real. And that was 10 years ago. And it's so weird to think about like that was only 10 years ago. We've got to focus on the importance of art and creativity. And that's the only way we're going to get out of our mess, you know? Sure. Is by inspiring and encouraging people with creative minds that think differently. We cannot all think the same and think our way out of this challenge.
Well, we'll see you next time. Hopefully, we'll get a chance to actually meet when you're back in New York, or maybe I'll be on your coast.
Yeah, please do.
Okay?
We have great hot springs.
Yeah, thank you for letting us come into your world. We're going to feature some of your documentary, and we're going to call you again to talk more in the future, okay?
Yes, because a lot of exciting things are happening. I didn't really get to talk.
You're going to keep evolving as the world evolves, so we're going to have you on again, okay?
Yes, thank you so much. Love y'all. Thank you for the opportunity.
And we'll see you again, okay? Bye-bye.
So, okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all for watching Odds and Ends. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble accounts. Angela Harvard is very concerned about the ocean and has done a lot of filming and work about the ocean. But on land, she stands on solid ground. So good night and stay bright.